What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It is Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and today we are talking about another excellent deck, a deck that I think is getting overlooked in the current meta. I think it's finally maybe found its time to come back into the meta in a big way, with the way that Ruby Sapphire and Sapphire Steel are posing, the way that they're playing the deck. Yes, they're playing Big Sisu, yes, they're playing Be Prepared, they have access to those board wipes, but more than ever they're being extra greedy in what they're trying to accomplish, and I think it might be a time for Hyper Aggro to come back around and do some things. So we'll be talking about what that deck list might look like with set 7 cards in the mix, and even set 6 cards. The deck hasn't really been in the mix in a while, so I think it's a cool deck to talk about now. It is a fairly inexpensive deck, so it is definitely something worth checking out if you're a new player and you want something that's a little more simple to play but can still definitely be challenging in the meta. That being said, before we talk about the deck list, as always, I gotta give a big shout out to the Patreons for making the giveaways on the channel possible. You guys are the real MVPs. We have a local tournament that is partially funded by Patreon, the first tournament that I am organizing. I'll throw the flyer up on screen, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be happening this coming Saturday, April 12th. We did hit our 12 player cap. We actually had somebody drop, so we're at 11 players as of the recording of this video. So if you are local to DeLand, Florida, and you want to check it out, definitely check us out. We're going to be playing at Gem Mint Games. Big shout out to those guys for letting us use the space totally for free. That is hugely appreciated. This is largely an event that we're doing to give back to the community. It's costing definitely way more than we're making on it, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be playing with set 1 through 7 cards with no color restrictions via a draft of repacks. So I think it's going to be a great time. I can't wait to talk to you guys more about how it went once it's all said and done. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump over to talking about today's deck list: Amethyst, Amber, Hyper Aggro. So the first card, and this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone, is going to be for Daisy Duck Donald's Date, a 1-cost uninkable 1/4 stat line questing for 2, with whenever she quests, your opponent reveals the top card of their library. If it is a non-character card, it is going to the bottom of their deck, and if it is a character card, they may put it into their hand if they so choose. They are probably going to choose to do that if they can, so you're probably going to be giving your opponent some card draw, but hopefully it's not going to matter if you're winning the game fast enough. Next up, to get some early game card draw going, we are on 3 Chernobog's Followers, a 1-cost inkable 2/1 stat line questing for 1, with whenever it quests, you may banish it to draw a card. Also, to get some of that card draw going and just keep our board refueled, even if these cards are questing for 1 and then just refueling, that is good. All they need to be doing is replacing themselves. So we are on 2 Magic Broom, a Luminary Keeper, a 1-cost inkable 1/2 stat line questing for 1, with whenever you play another character, you may banish this character to draw a card. Then this is your other optimal turn 1 other than Daisy Duck in that Steel matchup, and that is going to be Diablo Obedient Raven. You want to see one of those 2 cards as your turn 1 if you're playing against Steel. It is a 1-cost inkable 0/1 stat line questing for 1, with when this character is banished, you may draw a card. In a fantastic position in the meta right now. Great, like I mentioned, into that Steel matchup. So there's different mulligans you want to hit for different matchups. You look at all the main decks like Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, Sapphire Steel. The Steel decks aren't really playing Fire the Cannons right now. They're being greedy with the song cards as their direct removal. Ruby is typically playing Brawl or Small Sisu as its smallest form of removal, so they're looking at doing that on turn 3. It also really throws off their curve if they're a Ruby Sapphire player and they're having to throw out a Brawl on turn 3 or having to use a Sisu on turn 3, probably on turn 3, especially if they ramped on that turn 2. They're wanting to be playing Hiram. Maybe they will, and then they're giving you that 1 additional turn to quest. Hopefully not for their sake, because you may just run away with it if they do. Next up in the 1-cost slot still, we're on 4 Lilo Making a Wish, an uninkable 1/1 for 1, questing for 2, and we are also on 2 Maleficent Biding Her Time, exact same thing but in Amethyst. So we have 6 of these. We do have 10 total 1-drops that are going to be questing for 2. There is, I believe, 22 1-drops, 23 1-drops, something like that in the deck, quite a few. If you count the actions, we have 22 1-cost cards in the deck. Speaking of those actions, our 1-1-cost action, we're on 3 Befuddle, a 1-cost inkable action. Return chosen character or item with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. Really good card, especially if you're on the play. You go like turn 1 Maleficent, and then turn 2 you play like another Maleficent or a Lilo or a Daisy Duck or whatever it may be, and a Befuddle. All of a sudden you have 2 guys uncontested on the board. Or if they go like turn 1 Cinderella, you can be like Befuddled on and then clear up your board to do things. So you do have some options there. Next up, jumping over to the 2-cost slot and one of our new cards coming into the mix, we are on 3 Honey Honey Marin Northern Guide, a 2-cost inkable 2/2 stat line questing for 1. With when you play this character, if an opponent has an exerted character in play, gain 1 lore. It is highly likely that your opponent is going to have an exerted character in play, especially as you go further and further into the game, so the chance of this coming down and gaining you lore is pretty high, and it is super cheap, so it is great in combination with those bounce package cards like the next card we're going to talk about, which is Madam Mim Snake, a 2-cost inkable 3/3 stat line, this time questing for 1. With when you play this character, you have to return a character from play to your hand or banish her, so obviously super good with Honey Marin. You go Honey Marin, gain 1, Madam Mim, back to your hand, Honey Marin again, gain another 1, and that's still only 6 ink. You're getting 2 lore outright, so she's a great card to be able to take advantage of with the bounce package, and she is on curve with Fox if you're trying to play her on curve. Mim Snake, and of course those bounce package cards also letting you take advantage of any interplay triggers more than once. Next up, into the last card in the 2-cost slot, we are on 4 Lilo Escape Artist, a 2-cost inkable 1/2 stat line questing for 2. With at the start of your turn, if this card is in your discard, you may play her, and she enters play exerted. So if she is in your discard, you just get to get her back. She keeps recurring herself. People have taken to calling this zombie Lilo because she's just going to keep coming back from the grave. She goes in the grave, she comes back, she comes back. So when you're running out of cards in your hand and you don't have new characters to fuel your board, because obviously playing characters down that aren't going to be exerted is potentially going to be better, but when you've run out of those options, you have less cards in your hand, you need to do something with your ink, Zombie Lilo being in your bin is going to be fantastic. The only kind of thing annoying with this promo, and you guys may be able to see this, let me see if this is, they all have it, but this one's probably the worst one. Let's see if you guys can see this on camera. They all have a kind of little nick on the top of the card right above the inkwell, right above the ink symbol. So if you haven't seen these cards in person, it's super typical. I've heard a lot of people saying that they're having that issue with them. If you have those Lilos, check them out. Do they have that little nick? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we are on 3 Baloo von Brunwald the 13th, a 3-cost uninkable 0/3 stat line questing for 1, but questing is not what's important with him. What's important with him is that ability to bodyguard your field, those 1 and 2 cost characters. Ideally with this deck, you want to be going like turn 1 Daisy Duck, turn 2 Lilo Maleficent, and then turn 3 Bodyguard. Ideally something like Baloo is going to be fantastic, and then questing in, blocking, getting more lore if they get this out of their way. So it's just going to really put its foot on the gas right away. With when this character is banished, gain 2 lore. Doesn't matter how he's banished, as long as it's banished, you're going to be getting 2 lore. Another card giving you some incidental lore that your opponent may not necessarily be accounting for is our other Bodyguard, Donald Duck Musketeer Soldier, a 3-cost inkable 2/3 stat line questing for 1 with Bodyguard, and when you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. So he's going to be, if he's the card that you're playing on 3, you are potentially going turn 1, a guy that quests for 2 ideally, questing in for 2 on turn 2, playing 2 more guys that quest for 2, and then the next turn you're ready to quest for 6, but oh surprise, here comes Donald Duck giving me an additional +1 lore and questing for 7, so you could potentially end the 3rd turn of the game at 9 lore. Another card that I think is great from the last couple sets and really fits in nicely into this deck list, in particular matchups where they don't have a good way to deal with it, is going to be Tinkerbell Fast Flyer. This card's even funny into Ruby Amethyst. They do have things like Brawl, where they could just take that even trade. It's 3 ink for 3 ink, and they brawl your Tinkerbell off the board. They do potentially waste a turn doing it, but it is worth noting it's really likely that they're not going to have a character that can deal with this. A lot of them have moved back to Rabbit. Some of them are still playing Genie. They may get down that Elsa, but unless they can Elsa and Crab in the same turn, they're still not going to be taking out a Tinkerbell with an Elsa right away, because she is a 1/3 evasive questing for 2. So that evasive makes her really good. We saw Minnie Mouse, Stylish Surfer put in work in sets past. Maybe not as good of a stat line or evasive character as it used to be, but I still think it's got a very nice home in Hyper Aggro. Next up in the 3-cost slot, we're on 4 Madam Mim Fox, a 3-cost inkable 4/3 stat line questing for 1. With just like her snake counterpart, when you play her, you have to return another chosen character to your hand or banish her, and she does have rush, so when she comes down, she's going to be able to challenge the turn that she comes into play. Like I mentioned, super good on curve with those Honey Marins. You could go like turn 1, guy who quests for 1, quest in on turn 2, develop a Honey Marin, boom, you're already at 3 lore. Going into your next turn, you quest in with the Honey Marin, and hopefully the 1 drop again, you go to 6 lore, you play the Fox, you bounce the Honey Marin back to your hand, and then going into the next turn, so you have 2 Honey Marins in your hand, you're ready to play them both and potentially put yourself up to 10 lore. So as you can see, there's a lot of ways for this deck to get halfway to as much lore as it needs pretty early in the game. Jumping over to our 1/3 cost action, we are on 4 Friends on the Other Side, a 3 cost inkable action song, draw 2 cards. I've seen some people move away from this in favor of Amethyst Chromacon. I know my opponent's going to be drawing a lot of cards either way. Most likely a lot of decks are focused on that crazy card draw, but I don't want to let them draw too many cards, so Amethyst Chromacon isn't a card that I wanted to play. I know it only costs 2, but I feel like Friends on the Other Side is really good, especially when you're looking at playing those bodyguards. So I have like Musketeer Soldier, I have the Blue, Fox is one of my potential 3 drops. So I have a lot of stuff that's questing for 1 anyway. I don't have a lot of 3 drops that are questing for 2. So in that instance, it's not so bad taking our foot off the gas for 1 lore in order to sing Friends on the Other Side and gain 2 cards when our opponent gains 0. Speaking of gaining some card advantage, our last card in the 3 cost slot is the Library, a gift for Bell, a 3 cost inkable location, 1 to move in, 8 willpower, gaining you 1 passive lore at the beginning of each turn, which is fantastic, really great option, especially into those Sapphire matchups on 3. It puts them in a position where, okay, now maybe you have Hideaway and you have to play that, or we've seen some of those decks playing Cusco now, so maybe they're wasting a whole turn playing Cusco very early in the game to get rid of a Library. I guess that option is with them. If you have the characters to put in it, really take advantage of some card draw, maybe that is their best option. But whenever a character is banished, well, here you may draw a card. Obviously this works fantastic with those Diablos, Chernobyls, and those Brooms, which are already hopefully going to be getting you some card draw when they're going to the bin, so being able to double up on that with something like the Library is just absolutely fantastic. I've seen this many times. When your opponent can't deal with it right away, just absolutely put in work and change the tide of a game. Next up in the 4 cost slot, because we have so much draw elsewhere, I didn't think it was worthwhile to have the Rabbit. We are trying to get as much lore as possible as quick as we can, and I think Genie Wish Fulfilled is fantastic for that. He's also very good into those steel matchups with his 4 willpower as opposed to Rabbit's 3, but he is a 4 cost uninkable 2/4 stat line questing for 2 with evasive, another thing that he has that Rabbit doesn't have, which makes him really difficult for that Amber Steel matchup to deal with. They typically end up having to use something like Along Came Zeus to get him off your board, and when you play this character you are going to draw a card, so he's going to immediately replace himself and just help you keep your foot on the gas. Speaking of keeping your foot on the gas, our last card is no stranger to that, and that is going to be 3 Merlin Goat, a 4 cost inkable 4/3 stat line questing for 1. With when you play this character and when he leaves play, you're going to gain 1 lore, so obviously that works with those bounce triggers. If you are potentially able to take advantage of that multiple times, you get him down, he's gaining lore, going back, coming back, going back, going back. So really good. They haven't printed any other cards like this. There was a couple Merlin cards in the previous set that were all bad, so they have done a little bit with this mechanic. They don't seem to be interested in doing more mims. They did the elephant was kind of bad, so they toyed with it a little bit. They nerfed their strength, or they nerfed their cost to power effectiveness so significantly that the cards just ended up being bad. They really haven't shaken up the meta like these original Mim and Merlin cards, but that is the deck list. That is what I think Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro should look like in set 7. I honestly think it's in a really good place in the meta. You're going into those discard matchups, you just rush your hand out before they can do anything about it. They're maybe using some of that steel removal. That's not going to work too good against some of those characters like Daisy Duck and your other 4 willpower or even 3 willpower characters. Going to potentially be able to run out against Emerald Steel before they can really do anything about it. Hopefully same thing with Ruby Sapphire. There is a potential they go like turn 3 baby Sisu, remove one of your guys, slow you down enough to be able to shift that Sisu and then clear your board up, which isn't going to feel good for you. If you have additional cards in your hand and can refill the board after that, you might be okay, but there's always the real potential that they're just going to board wipe again and then start to get ahead of you going forward from there. So it is still a bit of a tough matchup, but I think going into that Sapphire Steel matchup, especially because those decks have become so greedy, you're in a better position than ever. I think this card could be a legitimate contender. I don't think it's the kind of deck that you would necessarily bring to a tournament and win every single round that you play, but I could see something like this winning enough rounds to be able to push into top 8 and potentially doing well against those other decks that may make it into top 8. Your matchup into Ruby Amethyst, for instance, is really good. They're having to wait until turn 7 to be prepared, so they're maybe using a little bit of targeted removal on your characters, maybe a Maui here or there. You're going to be able to push to 20 before they can really do anything about it. But I love, as always, to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content a lot. It helps us to get recommended to people like you who may also enjoy these videos. And when you see those toys, video games, and those Hyper Aggro lists featuring the nicked new zombie Lilo off in the distance, remember, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.